Henry P. is quoted saying that the first buildings erected by man seem indeed to have been protecting walls, the general arrangement consisting of a space square or circular in shape, surrounded by ramparts, protected by a moat and entered by gates. In short, it was an enclosure. This description is his way of defining how cities were first brought about, a significant feature of the city in which I have based my presentation around, York. As you can see from this map, which highlights the situation of the bar walls, York's foundations of this stone wall surrounding the inner city, which were initially placed there as an enclosure to prevent certain people from entering, means that this city fits into P.R.N.'s. The wall runs for 3 miles around the city, with 4 medieval gateways to the city still standing, one of which, Walmgate Bar, as shown here by means of a representation from 1828, and again with a picture of how it looks today, still boasts its original outer defence in the form of its barbican. The way that these bar walls were placed around the city in order to deter unwanted visitors also exemplifies an early simplistic representation of panopticism. The way that the layout of the original city resembles a circular structure, with lookouts built into the walls which allow for viewing out, but make seeing in extremely difficult, is very much like the way that Bentham designed his prisons, in order to keep track of his prisoners. Foucault describes the panopticon as a structure which reverses the principle of the dungeon, or rather of its 3 functions: to enclose, to deprive of light, and to hide. It preserves only the first and eliminates the other 2. This applies to York, as it encloses the city within the walls, but still manages to be completely visible, something which isn't reminiscent of a regular prison structure. As you can see from this picture, the idea works extremely well, with the people from inside the walls being able to monitor the activity around the walls without having to do anything at all. It also means that for the people on the outside of the wall, entering the city's boundaries was always at a risk, as behind the barrier was always the unknown. It could be concealing a lone man or an army, which is what makes the panopticon arrangement so unique. This monitoring has evolved to tailor modern-day needs, and today this action of is carried out mainly by use of CCTV, a method which York, as well as the majority of British cities, has taken on, with a total of 59 cameras present in and around York city centre, which are monitored 24/7, a process which still allows persons to see but not be seen. York was once upon a time a city of many industrial processes, with many factories mainly relating to the confectionery industry, including Terry's Chocolate Factory, the British Sugar Factory, Nestlé Rowntree's, and the Tangerine Toffee and Fudge Factory, all being thriving businesses. Unfortunately, since the rise of the price of sugar in Britain in comparison to the cheaper manufacturers in Europe, these factories have slowly dwindled from existence in York, with big moves to countries where production is at a much lower cost. Ash Amin talks about the process of this deindustrialization in his article, The Economic Base of Contemporary Cities, whereby he states that this process of deindustrialization is marked by the many derelict industrial zones, or converted factories to be seen in cities. This has been easily seen within the city of York, as the skeletal remains of factories stand where there was once a flourishing business. He goes on to say that because of this decline in industrial activity, we no longer think of factory life as the economic motor of cities, and in turn we think less of the city as the motor of the contemporary economy. This is particularly true of York, now being known still rightly for its beautiful buildings and grand minster, but no longer for the confectionery industry which once dominated, and which was so majorly associated with this particular place. As Amin then rightly points out, instead, the urban economy appears to have become a mixed bag of activities. Perhaps the most decisive shift has been the growth of services as the core of urban economic activity. This shift is seen in the growth of York's health service and education, including the University of York, which have become major employers for the city since the closure of these factories. York is also an extremely cultured city in terms of its art exhibitions, including a variety of high and low art. The York Art Gallery, an example of York's high art, was built in 1879 and boasts housing paintings from the 14th century and 20th century smaracs. York as a city holds both high and low art in quite close parameter, and due to this the two are almost fused into a singular. Adorno is quoted saying that the culture industry fuses the old and familiar into a new quality. It forces together the spheres of high and low art, separated for thousands of years. The seriousness of high art is destroyed in speculation about its efficacy. The seriousness of the lower perishes with the civilizational constraints imposed on, the rebellious resistance inherent within it. This is displayed with the presence of the gallery in conjunction with a lot of other art forms, such as street art, a popular example being the Purple Man, which is simply somebody painted purple who is able to hold a statuesque-like position, an exhibit which has many tourists and residents in York amazed. In October 2008, the city also held an exhibition which saw art that would normally be categorized as high art being plastered onto the streets. A further example of the way in which York's culture industry had blurred into a singular, with expectations being completely dismissed in favour of a new, surprising direction. Another, harder-to-place piece of art includes the infamous FTR bendy bus, one of which was designed by a graphic design student who won the chance to cover the bus in his artwork. This inability to place such artwork exemplifies Adorno's point perfectly. Adorno is also quoted saying that, even if it touches the lives of innumerable people, the function of something is no guarantee of its particular quality, an opinion which a lot of these residents of York have made clear about these new buses, with or without the art display. The problem with this use of low art to showcase something which could potentially cross over into high art is that the audience are now being forced to view something which they may not particularly want to see, whereby if it is presented in a gallery, the audience participation is of free will, and the art is only showcased to the correct audience. Moving on to the location of York, the fact that it happened to be halfway between the capitals London and Edinburgh means that it is an important milestone in the national transport system, being home to a large train station, resulting in it being an important post on the railway network. Asa Briggs says that the railway linked the new cities together and made their growth possible. Like the cities themselves, it is a symbol of improvement. This meant for York that it went from being a small city to being at the heart of the country in terms of its links to other cities, and therefore businesses. Also, due to the large river Ouse also running through the city, this meant that even before transportation such as the train came about, it was still easily accessible by boat.